Spencer, let's start with branded content.
Yes.
Tell me how you view the role of branded content.
I typically feel that it's best to get into the space with branded content when you want to align with something bigger than yourself. I think many agencies these days have channel planning tools that help tell them what they need to do to overcome certain barriers. And if it's making a statement or driving more awareness or visibility, typically one thing that you can do is to align with something bigger than yourself. So obviously there's partnerships that you can look to, whether it's through an integration or through a publisher, for example, in order to do that. And I think there's a great reliance that we should put on our publishing partners, and I know DJ represented that group here, to hopefully allow them to take a little bit more control versus what we do, simply because they're the experts and they can bring people to the party to help you extol what you really want to extol. Branded content also allows us to establish certain brand guidelines. When you do sponsorship, typically you may not necessarily have the opportunity to have a partner stick to certain brand guidelines that you really want to elevate. But in the case of branded content, that's really what job one is all about. Yeah.
So it's different from a television ad.
It can be. It can be, however, in certain cases, I think many marketers out there, as well as agencies, are still experimenting or testing the waters as to how they want to get into the branded content space. In our example, with what I represent with many accounts in my group, is that we have some challenger brands that we represent. And so many of those challenger brands may not have a lot of assets to begin with, even TV assets. So we look to a partner to help us develop what some of those assets should be. In many cases, if you look at a content vertical like travel, for example, perhaps a partner in that space on the publisher side can bring to you a partnership that will help elevate what you can do. And it might not just be TV or video.
So you're thinking then of branded content as covering different formats. It's video and non-video,
exactly,
as you describe it, right?
Yeah, it could be everything from native content to sponsored article pages to rich content to of course, in video. But it could be something broader than that. We've had a great success in learning various lessons that we do need a plethora of things in order to define what branded content is.
Did you see John Oliver's piece?
I did not. I know we talked about that a bit, but I've not yet had a chance
the audience saw it recently, but it's hilarious where he was just trashing the whole concept of native ads.
Oh, is that right?
In a funny way. Have you gotten any negative feedback on when you're running branded content? Let's say written branded content.
No, and in fact, I know we have a lot of love for and passion for video content, but we have had some great success measures about written content. We have had some measures that in terms of views and shares, certain things in the non-video space have surpassed video.
Right.
Case in point, it's not across the board. However, that gives us a good understanding that whomever we're trying to target kind of knows what they're going into that understanding. They know what the bargain is. And I think especially the millennials, which are vastly consuming content on mobile, they know what the bargain is. So they kind of understand what's in it for them. So for us, we don't really necessarily care about what kind of content that is, as long as it's what they want.
Yeah. So my earlier comment this morning when I said that generally the work we've done at ComScore, we see that on average video outperforms non-video.
Right.
You can point to some examples where non-video works best for a particular brand in a particular situation. Right?
Yeah, and we, without obviously being able to quote the exact source or the client and what the success story was, there are occasions where we have very brief native editorial content working with the publisher and working with obviously a distribution partner to put it out there in the right places in order to amplify what content we create. But that is very digestible. And then the feedback that we've received is that it's not much of a commitment for the consumer to digest a quick read as opposed to potentially a video. We have found with our own review that when it comes to video, short form is best. So 2 minutes or less. And we typically have done everything in-app on mobile, not necessarily in the browser. And we also found that pre-roll works best versus interstitial. So there's certain findings that we're having about the success of video that we're trying to obviously use to inform what we do going forward.
And you've used both autoplay and user-initiated?
No, we pretty much have done mostly everything through user-initiated.
Really?
We find that most of the experience in user-initiated is obviously up to the consumer to do what he or she wants to do on their terms, whereas autoplay may not necessarily be the kind of experience they want. So thus far, with what we've done in my group, it's all been user-initiated.
So I heard numbers that the user-initiated percentage, on average, runs about 1%. Which seems, it's not high, right? If you want to get reach, that's not the way to do it.
Yeah.
Have you seen higher engagement levels than that?
We have, and I think the most important thing here is that there was an earlier group that talked about that reach may not always be the objective. And obviously engagement, I think, the overly used word of the decade, is really what people are going for. And we define engagement, whether it's views or shares, maybe clicks, differently by vendor. So depending upon what vendor we use, whether it's a publisher or working with an integrated partner like a larger media company to elevate what we're trying to do in content, we're probably going to look at different measures. And we've had great success, actually, in seeing exactly what that user-initiated percentage is. Yeah.
So there's another trend that seems to be emerging. I don't know if it'll be sustainable, where the pricing varies according to the length of time that the video is viewed. Are you seeing that?
Yes, of course. Yeah, and we are big believers in a cost per view metric, and so that's typically the currency in which we negotiate. Cost per click could be something that people consider, but in our experience, cost per view is incredibly important. And I think it's also interesting in working with publishers. We're all trying to figure out what is the right format. Could it be that people want shorter than 2 minutes? Are they ready for medium form? And how they digest the information, how important is that? Like, are they looking to binge view, or are they looking for fresh content on a weekly basis? So I think all of that helps determine length, cost per view, what you're willing to pay for that view. So that's all. Those are all factors that we're currently working through right now.
So it's not a straightforward issue by any stretch, right?
Not necessarily. It has to be up to the vendor with whom you're working and what kind of partnership it is and what you're really looking to get out of that relationship. Yeah.
What do you think lies ahead in branded content?
I think that inherently we need to, and again, we have some challenger brands, so we typically have repurposed some of our TV assets. But I think the industry is going to work to figure out how we can best determine what content should look like by format, by device, by time of day, working on a day parting strategy. I think that's to come. I think that's really where we're looking to go, and I think that'll help inform what kind of relationships we have going forward. And I think too is that I know this happens with a lot of our categories in which we work, not necessarily our clients, but many are hiring in-house videographers to collect content that way, to potentially stave off production costs. So I think working with partners like at a publisher or an integrated media company is great, but there are also other ways that people are gathering content because there's such a voracious appetite for what consumers are looking for. So I think that's what's actually lying ahead in the next several years.
Cool. Thanks very much.
Absolutely.